Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics common to both the Power Basic console and Windows compilers. Today we will look at conditional code and how to make good use of it. There will come a time in your programming where some of your code will need to be conditional. All applications take data in from somewhere or other, either directly from a user, or reading it in from an external file, or perhaps reading it from a database. And depending on the information coming in, this data may require you to operate differently for different types of information. Your code will need to be conditional. What we're going to do today is look at some conditional code. Firstly, we will need some data, so we will dimension a small array to hold 9 items of data, and then we will use the arrayAssign command to populate that array with data. So in our PB main function, we have dimensioned a string array with 9 elements. And we've used the arrayAssign command to assign a value to each of those 9 elements. Having assigned and populated the array, we can now use a for next loop to step through each element of the array. To prove we populated the array, we'll put each element out to a log. And if we attempt to run the application now, we will see that the 9 elements of the array are now put out to our log, all the way from apple down to watermelon. So this is our data set. What we're going to do now is a bit of conditional code to decide which of these elements we're actually going to display. So we're going to use the if command to test the element we're currently looking at. We're testing to see if the string held within this element equals the value of apple. If it does, then we will print out to our log. If we run this now, we will see only the data which matches apple is printed out to the log. All other data elements are ignored. So we performed a piece of conditional code. If the value string data long F is equal to apple, if that's true, then we will print to our log. So what if we wanted to test on more than just one item? So we now have an if condition which has 2 tests. It's first of all testing the value of the element to see if it equals apple. If that returns true, then we're printing out to the log. The second check is on the else if. If the value also equals pear, then we're printing out to the log. And for every other condition, the else, we're doing nothing at all. If we try running that code now, we'll see we have 2 values printing out to the log, apple and pear. However, if you have a number of elements you wish to test on, this can be quite a laborious way of typing it up. So, is there another way of doing it with less typing? The method we've just used works fine if you're doing a different thing for apple than you're doing for pear. However, if you're doing exactly the same thing for both of them, this construct will work just as well, but will involve less typing, and it will look cleaner. We're testing to see if the value equals apple, or we're testing to see if it equals pear. So we're using the OR command to check both. If we run the code now, we will see that it returns the 2 values we would expect to see. However, what if you wanted to print all values out except one? You wish to exclude a value based on the string. In this case, we can actually use the not equals. If the data in the element is not equal to apple, then we print out to the log. If we try running that now, we would see we'll get every value except the one that's marked as apple. So we can quite happily exclude a line of data using this command. What if you have to exclude more than one? Can we use the same construct? If we use the construct like this to say if the data item does not equal apple or the data item does not equal pear, what would we get when we run this? Let's try it and see. Well, it's showing the apple and it's also showing the pear. It's showing all 9 items. So what's gone wrong with our logic? If we look at the code again, the first test is this one. it's testing to see if the data in that element does not equal apple. And we're using OR to test a second check. And that's checking to see whether the data is not equal to pair. So if either of these tests returns true, then our code will send it out to the log. So if the data coming in happens to say apple, the first condition will be false. However, the second condition will be true. And as we're using an OR, at least one of the conditions has to be true for our line to be executed to send it to the log. So if you wish to exclude 2 or more items, this is not the way to do it. So is there an easier way, which is still easy for us to read, without a long, nested if condition? If you're starting to get a very complex, conditional piece of code, the next thing to look at is the select case command. The select case command can do some very complex logic in a very few lines of code. What we're doing here is we're telling PowerBasic that we wish to test the strdata long f element. That's the select case statement. And then we're providing it with a series of cases. The first case is apple or pear. So if our data line has apple or pear, then what follows the case statement is going to be executed. In this case, we want to do nothing. And for every other element, case else, we will then send a message to our log. So if we run this code now, we will see we get all the data lines except apple and pear. So we have successfully excluded the 2 lines that we do not want on our log, using the select case statement in a very few lines of code. However, the select case statement can go even further. Let's assume we wish to exclude everything that appears alphabetically greater than the word pear, or equal to the word pear. Select case can do this quite nicely. We are still testing on the strdata element, so it's still select case strdata long f. And we're using the case is greater than or equal to pear. So in this case, if that returns true, then we do nothing. For every other data line, we're printing it out to the log. You don't need to use the is part of this command. Case on its own would work just as well. But if we try running the code now, we'll see we're getting everything up to, but not including, the one which is alphabetical pear. Watermelon, for example, does not appear. So far we've done conditional statements based on strings. Both your if and select statements can also operate upon numbers. So as a general rule, if you have a simple conditional test to perform, the if statement does quite nicely. If it's something more complex, or that's going to make it difficult for you to read on screen, use a select case statement. As always when writing code, you should work on a series of criteria. The first criteria is the code has to work. It has to do what you expect it to do. Secondly, the code you write should run in a reasonable length of time. It should be performant. Next, the code has to be well enough documented in comments and readable so that the next person who has to support and change the code, which might well be yourself, can easily understand it. Hopefully you'll find this introduction to conditional code useful in your applications, but that's it for today. Thank you for watching.